How are you doing, man? I'm Gil Roth, and you're listening to a bonus episode of my Virtual Memories Show podcast. This is a COVID check-in episode where I record with a past guest of the podcast to find out how they're holding up during the pandemic. As far as how I'm doing, it is Saturday morning, and yesterday was pretty down for me. Just could not put on the facade I needed to in order to face the day. I still got some work done. I let the members of my trade association and my wider email list know that I was just not the gabby, cheery, etc. guy who I usually am in the intro to the big weekly email I send out. I got some nice sentiments back from my audience for that, which I appreciate. But still, got work done, wound up recording a new check-in for you guys. It just wasn't easy, is all I'm saying. This morning, I woke up to something even worse. The awful news that one of my favorite tutors at St. John's College, David Townsend, lost his daughter and grandson in an accident. When I saw a headline yesterday about a Kennedy descendant and child missing in a canoe mishap, I didn't click through to read about it. I wasn't dismissive or anything. I just didn't check it out. This morning, I realized the Kennedy part was that her mother is Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who is David's wife, and the daughter and her child are missing, presumed dead, and that just walloped me like a ton of bricks. I wrote him immediately, but what do you say in that sort of circumstance? And for his family to have that loss on top of everything else we're going through, well, it's just terrible. Terrible to imagine. So, that is how I started my day. I finished writing my journal this morning. I just need to get this podcast posted so I can get to stretching and get out for a run and hope that it all improves my disposition and get some positive inertia for another day. So, today's guest, Dmitry Samarov, is joining me this time from Chicago for his check-in. He's an artist and painter. He's been on the show a number of times, most recently in January, to talk about his most recent book, a memoir about his emigration from the USSR in the 70s and his American upbringing. It's called Soviet Stamps, and there'll be information about Dmitry's site at the end of the episode. Now, as caveats go, not much. He's been on the show enough to know that he needed a good mic setup and a quiet apartment, so that worked out. Here's Dmitry. How are you coping? What's the situation like for you?
You know, for me, just me personally, it's absolutely fine. Right. It's kind of like a fucked up thing to say, but I had a bunch of projects and things that were ongoing and lined up, and the isolation has kind of accelerated them and has concentrated my attention. I mean, the big thing, aside from creatively, is I was getting ready to move, and I still am. The movers are considered essential, so the moving day is on May 2nd. But that May 2nd is, a month from now, and since, I've been sequestered here, I've pretty much packed almost all my belongings. The walls are bare except for artwork that I'm working on that's in progress. So it's it's sort of like my apartment, but not my apartment anymore. Kind of like a monastic cell kind of situation here, which suits productivity. I
was going to say, is that something you actually dig at this point in both in your life and in the situation outside?
It's really strange. It's only recently in the last few years that I've come to sort of understand this whole art residency retreat thing.
Yeah.
I never used to understand why you'd have to go away from distractions, but this has actually been really good. And before the quarantine and everything, I'd actually applied for a residency for the fall, which I don't know what will happen because I don't know if will have the funds or whether there was one message from them saying that they've suspended applications, but I got mine in, so I have no idea if I'm even in the running for this thing. And I don't know if financially I'll be able to take it's 2 weeks in Michigan, like on a lake. So it's only recently that the prospect of something like that has appealed to me, for some reason. Maybe it's, I don't know, the point in my, quote unquote career that I'm at, that actually like having some kind of deprivation chamber, it helps. Maybe there's just enough other distractions at this point, or external thoughts and intrusions that, like, when they're removed, it makes me concentrate better.
I know you've never liked non-urban settings. Previously. Is this sort of a weird best of both worlds thing? You get the isolation, but you're still in and around a city?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I can't imagine. Yeah. That's the other thing that's been weird. I have been on 1 or 2 art residency retreat type situations, and it's almost always in nature, which I have no interest in. Right. So, the one advantage is to get away from the everyday kind of distractions that would prevent you from getting things done.
Now, are there aspects you miss about the job and going out into the city and everything else?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Primarily, I love eating out. I love restaurants, and I can't do that. So I've actually been doing this weird thing that I guess a lot of people do normally, which is cooking it and eating at home.
What's that?
I know. I had to turn the refrigerator back on. It was traumatic. I'm still trying to get over it.
Are you finding any particular skill at stuff, or are you using Boris Fishman's memoir/cookbook to work from?
No, I'm not in that kind of rarefied air. But the thing is that I'm fine. I'm not bad at cooking. I just don't like doing it for myself. I like doing it when I was, with a lady, basically. If I had a lady to cook for, then there's like there's motivation. But just for myself, it's very hard to get inspired. Here the inspiration is survival. So that'll work.
Yeah, finding you starved to death under a stack of canvases really isn't a.
I know. That's not the kind of starving artist I'm aiming to be.
Okay. Yeah, you've really honed that particular type of starving artist for quite a while. So.
Speaking of Boris Fishman, have you been in touch with him? I texted with him last night.
No, I haven't. And I just re-emailed all of my past guests who I hadn't heard from yet about this series.
Well, I'll leave it to him to answer, but he's fled the eye of the storm.
Good.
He's no longer in NYC. So there's I'll leave it as a cliffhanger for the listeners. You should try to get in touch with him. Yeah, he's a great talker.
Yeah. I just don't know, with people with kids, with everything else going on, et cetera, making the time to do this stuff. But it's one of those. I figure some people just, my emails go into their spam boxes. Other ones, people have a little bit going on right now. So they're not necessarily, that guy I did a podcast with 8 months ago. I wonder what he's doing.
He's very disciplined with his work. So like I hear from him, I text him, but I don't hear back until like later in the evening. So I guess when he's done, and he's got a little kid. So there's also that.
But are you keeping up with people in general? Do you find yourself doing more of that sort of texting and keeping up than you were before?
Well, I just checked my my phone plan, where I have my minutes and stuff for voice, because I only have voice and text. I have a dumb phone. But in 8 days of my current plan, I've used 14 minutes of talk time.
Nice.
So that still holds true. A little bit more texting, but really only with a few people. There's regulars and a bunch of employees at the Skylark, where I bartend on Sundays, have a Skype happy hour thing every day, and I just can't bring myself to do it. I can't do it, like some kind of social anxiety / it's the same thing that prevents me from going to parties prevents me from doing this. I mean, we've talked well, off mic ad nauseum about my feelings about video chat, but
yeah, yours are more extreme than mine. I've always said if any of us look good on screen, this is not the job we would be in right now. Where you consider it to be tantamount to a hostage video. So yeah, I get where you're coming from.
It's something about the glitchy image, the echoey sound, and the face in the room. It profoundly, it's like a horror movie to me. I don't. And I'm not saying this is rational or
no, it's fine to have.
I do not like it. I mean, to the point where like my parents, who are avid travelers, will go to Europe for like 2 months and they want to Skype, and I say they have to email me. I just won't. I won't do it.
You can do a voice Skype, but just the video thing.
I know. Yeah.
No, I do like Zoom conference calls through work now. I had like a strategic plan meeting a couple of days ago, and a few people used video. Most of us used audio. I used audio and slapped on the avatar of the Japanese coffee boss vending machine as my image. That's all anybody sees when they look over at my little tile is this Japanese guy with a pipe and the words coffee boss circling his head.
I did actually open a Skype account because a buddy who works at the bar is trying to launch some sort of like YouTube channel / podcast / like he's really struggling with technology right now. But I was a guest a couple of times and just did the voice thing. And my avatar for that is this Philip Guston painting that I have a tattoo of on my stomach. Actually, it's his sort of like artist's life. It's this big head without a nose staring at a bottle.
So I was going to go with the thing I'd used for years as an avatar. It's in the Chicago Art Museum at the Art Institute. It's that silence sculpture on the wall with a guy holding the finger over his lips.
Oh yeah,
looking half dead. Yeah, I've used that for years and years. The shot I have from sort of underneath it, so you get the heavy liddedness. But I felt silence wasn't necessarily the best avatar to use for like conference calling systems.
Yeah, so. for a talking app, it's right. Sort of like people will be confused or think you're an asshole or something.
Well, there's that to begin with. But tell me about the stuff you're working on. You said you've got a series of paintings you're doing now.
Yeah, so I've sort of started like the last paintings in this apartment kind of series. So I just actually finished one out the window this morning before taking a bike ride. There's another one that I shared in my Monday newsletter of all my boxes of books packed into the front room. Just really most of my belongings, aside from clothes. And I've thrown away so much over these last 3 weeks, in preparation to move. So, it's beginning to set in that I'm not going to have this environment anymore in roughly 4 weeks. And if bars reopen in August, I have a show scheduled in a bar, which will be dedicated to paintings and drawings about this apartment in which I've lived about 5.5 years.
And the good thing is with the whole, post social distancing thing, you can use that as an excuse not to go to the opening.
Well, the good thing about having a art up at a bar is you don't really have to have an opening. It's a bar, so people will go there or not go there.
I thought maybe they do a special night the first night or something.
They offer it. It's sort of up to the artists. And we drink for free, but like who comes is kind of up to me, and I don't do social media, so it's usually pretty limited. I'll send out a group text or something, but we'll see how that goes. In any case, I'll have a body of work this last series in this apartment, and then I'll move into my new one, and a new one will start.
I was going to ask, has the self-isolation thing refined any sort of work routine for you, or are you pretty much on the same sort of schedule you were before, just not going out and bartending? And
except for the bartending and going to movies and restaurants. My routine the last few years has totally been dictated project to project. So, like, for instance, in the past week or two, I've been re-editing a new book that's going to collect basically the material from my 2 cab books plus some post-cab career writing into one volume. And I kind of started into it and then really got sucked in. So then I emailed the copy editor I've worked with a couple of times, just like to ask her if she has any availability, any time to work on something. And to my surprise, she answered right away. I was expecting not to hear from her for weeks. Yeah. But so that caused the next 2 days, like 2 12-hour days in a row of editing, because I needed to get a thing, together to send to her. So that changes things. Suddenly people that never answer email or text are right there.
Yeah. That's been my thing with doing these sessions. I realize when I zap someone and ask, are you going to be free or what? It's reflexive for me. And then I realize, oh, we're all free now. Yeah. We're all sitting around with nothing to do.
Well, yeah, I think I told you I could do this like 3 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, I know. I just had this list of people.
No, of course.
That's why today I was feeling, I was pretty down today and just kind of meh. And it hit around 3 or 4 o'clock and I was thinking, I really need to do one. I guess I could do one tomorrow and just post it then. But if I get out of the rhythm, I'm going to feel bad.
Oh, you didn't have one lined up for tomorrow yet? Oh.
No, there's a whole bunch. I've got a whole bunch I can hit up, but I just wasn't in the mood. Yeah. And then I thought, if I ask, are you ready in 3 minutes, will say, sure, Gil. And I thought, well, Dmitry.
Actually, I will say, if you had texted me an hour ago, we would have had to wait because I took a long bike ride today. First bike ride in a week and a half. Because the weather's been shitty. Mm-hmm. Usually my routine is I've been going out once a day for a walk, sometimes to the grocery store, sometimes not. But today was really nice. It's like around 60, sunny. So I went up to the north side and took a walk with a friend who, obviously the only other person I've seen a couple of people over the last 3 weeks in person. So we took like an hour walk. And it's interesting that like in that neighborhood in Logan Square where he lives, there's a lot more people out than where I am. So it probably varies neighborhood to neighborhood. From the news reports, it seems like Chicago's doing pretty well with the distancing, but up there's a lot of people out, like more than I expected, Yeah. But I got back about an hour ago from that. Yeah.
I figured worst came to it, you weren't going to be gone for the next day and a half or something.
No.
I'm glad you're around.
So. Hour or two is about all I ever do these days. Yeah.
So when you talk about packing all the books, were there any you left out? Is there anything you're working on and reading now?
Yeah. I think I texted you about this. My 2 current books are Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer and then The Dairy Restaurant by Ben Katcher. Mm-hmm. And I have them in 2 different spots. The Tropic of Cancer is by the bed, and the Dairy Restaurant's by the armchair here, where I do a lot of my work. So those are the 2 spots that I read these 2 books. They're pretty different books, but sort of instructive. I had a strange revelation actually with Tropic of Cancer when I dove back into editing my cab writing, especially the early stuff. I could actually see influence, like phrasing and stuff, and stuff that I actually was cutting out as the 2020 version of me as a writer. Mm-hmm. Stuff that I had written, 10, 15 years ago. Like, I think Henry Miller had a bigger effect on me than I would have ever guessed.
That's often the case where we don't quite realize what was behind
this.
this.
I hadn't read that book since high school, maybe early college. I haven't read that book in 30 years. Yeah. I'm really enjoying it. Actually, sometimes he kind of drifts off into babbling, but a lot of it is just really alive, and it's amazing that it's a book that was written 86 years ago.
Did I ever foist off the essay by Orwell about Miller?
Well, I think I texted you. This is the reason I'm reading it, is that I randomly picked up one of the books I still have out is the Orwell Collected Essays.
Oh, good.
And I got around to reading that essay, and I was like, I wonder what it would be like to read Henry Miller now. And I went and bought a cheap copy, and it was luckily before all this started, Yeah. And I've been reading very slowly. Not unlike you, I haven't actually finished a book in 3 weeks, which
I
is
finally did this morning.
Yeah. Congratulations.
I'm so fucking happy.
Good job.
When I finish, I'm like, thank God. I can now say, first time since March 8th, I finished a book. Let me, now I could read other stuff and go on. But
I don't have any hard and fast rule or count or anything. I don't really care about that. But I have been, and I'm not a fast reader, but it has been slower than normal. But I'll chalk that up mostly to being preoccupied and reading and rereading. Like I've had to reread my own books 2-3 times doing this edit. So, I put the computer away and I watch something, and then it's time for bed and I read like 3 pages and fall asleep,
Right.
Yeah.
But at least you've got something occupying you like that. I mean, for me, it was reading legislative language and trying to understand, the meaning of this and that clause in federal code. So that kind of, partly took me away from stuff. And then the anxiety and just stress of all this is the other factor.
The busy work, which I find like re-editing or editing old stuff like I'm doing with the cab book, it's not creative in the same way as writing something new or painting. It's more of like some sort of janitorial or, I don't know, clerical work, and because it's old, it's easier to cut and, really chop away stuff. But it definitely scratches an itch, and it really takes a long time. So suddenly before I know it, like I missed lunch and it's time to eat something and then watch something and go to bed, which is nice. Yeah.
Good. It's ways of passing the time until the world ends on us. But
yeah.
Now, last question: the thing you're going to miss most about the apartment?
Hard to say. I really love. There's a built-in bookcase just to the right of me in the living room where I'm sitting, which used to be a window until they added a back staircase, which is my front door. Mm-hmm. So they just built in this bookcase in what used to be a window, and all my favorite books used to be in it. And my new place isn't going to have that, so I'll miss that. I think I'm going to have to leave here and spend some time away from it to know. You know what I mean?
I get you.
Yeah.
We'll get you back on. You can explain it then. Well, once it hits you, it'll be one of those, the thing I really miss. But
I'm not good at I'm no Nostradamus. I have to wait and think about, a thing has to have passed for me to know what I thought of it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Keeping in mind, I'm the guy who's been living in the same house pretty much for 49 years. So.
Has it? I have a question for you about that.
Sure.
Can you, in your mind or in your memory, are there different kind of like eras or phases of your like habitation there, just on your own, not as a child, but like as an adult?
Well, certainly. Since
different eras.
I moved back in 2003, and around 2012, I think, is when we gutted the downstairs, turned it into the library/office, and that really did, transform the entire shebang. There's a few other things we've also done to fix the stuff my father did to the house when he was living here for a bunch of years, and then the guy who was living in a spot when I was on the outs with my old man. But I think the library, the before and after of the downstairs is really the big change. Plus getting it hit by lightning last summer was also a next stage. Oh yeah.
I think I missed that. What happened?
Oh, there's a big lightning storm, and the maybe the metal shed right next to the house out back got hit. The house itself got zapped. We only lost a couple things as far as the electronics went. There was no fire or anything like that. But it was one of those. Well, so that's what it's like. Okay. Didn't know what it means when a place gets hit by lightning. Now we know.
Yeah. I only know that from TV or
no superpowers or anything. I was very disappointed, but
sorry to hear that.
I thought I'd gained something. But
I am jealous of anybody that's got such a defined idea of home like you do.
It's weird. I mean, this has always been it. I mean, I've lived elsewhere, college, grad school, and 5-year stretch in my 20s into my early 30s. But, I've lived here longer than anyone else has, and the place feels like an extension of my nervous system. So,
right.
I can deal with the constraints of being here, as opposed to being in a tiny apartment in New York and not being able to leave because you're afraid of infection, etc. So
yeah, each new apartment I have this like hope that it's the last one, or like the final, not like the final resting place, but like the permanent one.
Right.
So now I have these hopes for my new place, which is just a couple of miles from here, but we'll see what happens.
Can't wait to see the paintings.
All righty.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Sweet. Thanks for having me.
That was Dmitry Samarov. Go check out his website, dmitrysamarov.com, where you can find links to his books like Soviet Stamps and Music to My Eyes, and a ton of his paintings for sale. As he mentioned, everything is packed up right now until he moves, so if you do order one of his paintings, it might take a little while for him to ship it. To spell the name and website, that's DmitrySamarov.com. You can also sign up for his weekly email, which I usually enjoy a lot, at tinyletter.com/Samarov, spelled the same way, and it's all spelled in the title for this episode too. We'll be back tomorrow with another COVID check-in. If you want to send me a little update to read on the air or have something you want to share with the listeners, let me know and we'll set something up. I'm at groth18@gmail.com. You can find my contact info at our websites, chimeraobscura.com/VM or vmspod.com. The former site also has a menu link to the COVID-19 sessions, which captures all of these daily episodes. And in case you're interested in the remote setup that I'm using, this is Zencastr, which allows me and the guest to record our audio tracks and allows me to combine them in Adobe Audition to make a new show. It's spelled Zencastr, so no final E. Zencastr is $20 a month, but my Patreon supporters more than cover that, especially since I'm no longer spending money on parking and tolls and coffee and subway rides to record in-person episodes. If you can spare anything, find the Patreons, tip jars, Kickstarters, Indiegogos, other crowdfunding stuff for the artists and writers and just people who you like and who are in need, and show them some support. I'm doing fine. I am Gil Roth. This is a bonus episode of my Virtual Memories show. Thank you so much for listening. Keep the conversation going, stay safe, and wash your damn hands.